Hello and welcome to the video for game design week 17, and this is Monday's video. Today we have a couple presentations due from Nick and Marissa. Please post those in your Google Drive folder and let me know they're there so I can eventually put them up on the website. Today we are going to talk about the Twine games that you guys are creating, but we're going to talk about them from the perspective of flowcharts and ideas. And it just so happened, I didn't plan it this way, it just kind of worked out this way, but I assigned another class of mine an assignment to do a choose your own adventure game. That class happens to be called Interactive Design, and they are working in the Adobe Animate software. And so they've come up with all these ideas and these flowcharts, and I wanted to share those with you and show you a little bit of what they're doing to hopefully give you guys some ideas and inspiration for what you want to do for your games. So I have a couple links here. This Animate file, you'll only be able to open that if you have the Adobe Animate software. And this flowchart, though, is, I believe, a PDF. You'll be able to open that. But I have those open up here as well. So let me see if I can just go to them very quickly right here. Okay, so we're going to start off with a student's Choose Your Own Adventure game. And her game is about a young woman who is going to go to the prom. Her name's Allie, and she's going to go to the prom, and she is going to decide what clothes she's going to wear. She has to figure out what dress she's going to wear, what shoes, what kind of hairstyle, and also what kind of makeup she's going to put on. And the idea behind this game is if you play the game correctly, then you could win a free color icon lipstick or blush from this Wet n Wild company. So let me backtrack a second and say that the assignment for the students in the interactive design class was to create a choose your own adventure game that was sponsored by a specific company. So that company, is therefore going to give some kind of prize. This would be like something that would exist on the internet as like a form of advertisement. Okay, so here's her idea. This is one of the graphics for her game. Now, if we go over here and look at the flowchart that was created for a game, there's the page we just looked at is called the title page, and then it's going to go to a story page which tells you the background of this character Allie and why she's going to the prom. And next it's going to go to what's called a vanity page, and that vanity page is going to have 3 links on it where you'll be able to choose your eyeshadow, your blush, and your lipstick. After you make those choices, it's going to go to another sort of general page which is called outfits, and you'll be able to choose 3 choices each, I believe, between dresses, hairs, and shoes. And then finally, you're going to go to an outro screen, and you click on a link there, you get your reward, and of course, you can go over to the website from there. Now, in addition to having this sort of straight story flow, there are places throughout basically every page where there's a link to return to the start. So maybe you screwed up or you hit a cul-de-sac or something like that. So I work with a student. We actually programmed what I would call a template or a shell for this particular game in Adobe Animate. And let me show you what that looks like. So here it is. And in Adobe Animate, if you're not familiar with it, it's an animation program. And this is the animation timeline, and you can stack up layers, and then this is the animation window here, right? So what we did was we created a number of different layers. One layer is just for the title of the pages. So you can see this first one is called title, and the second one is called story, and then vanity, and so on and so forth, which of course matches up to title, story, vanity, this stuff here. And then, because we were making just, the idea behind this was to make a working template or a shell that you could program everything to work in so that you could click around all the buttons and go to the right places, and then simultaneously work on the artwork on sort of a different track, and then be able to drop the finished artwork into the shell. So we have the title page here, and we had to put in a next button which would take you to the next page, which in order to preview this, I'm going to have to let's see, I think if I can hit the play button in here, I might be able to preview it. Play. Nope, because it's not it's not abiding by any of the stop commands. Let me try it like this. Okay, control test movie. This is, by the way, HTML5 animation, so it'll play in a web browser. Okay, so here we are. We don't have the edge showing, but so you're on the title page and you hit next, and now you go to the story page, and this tells you Allie's story. And then we go to that first, the page that was listed in, it had the green box around it. This is like your choice page, right? And uh, you can choose to do your eyeshadow, your blush, or your lipstick, right? And so notice that this is where, once we're sort of into the game itself, this is where the return to start buttons start to appear. And of course, it does take you back to the title page. So we'll go back to this. So eyeshadow is going to take you to a unique page just for eyeshadow. And then here is where you'll make that choice, right? Now, I can see, actually, now that I'm looking at this, I can see that we made an error when we were programming this. And sometimes these things, it's good though that I'm realizing this. Sometimes these things only become apparent when you start to like click through things. So what the error is that we made it. I made it when I was programming with her, that you click on one choice and, like, eyeshadow, and then you get to choose from your 3 eyeshadow things, and then you click the next button. But then it takes you down to the set of the next 3 choices, right? When really, you have to go through all these choices, which means that the next button should really have just been sort of a return to that page to choose the next item of those 3 on the page, right? So this is what I'm saying. From the vanity page, which lists these 3, if you click on any one, if you click on, there's 3 buttons which correspond to these on the vanity page. So let's say you click on eyebrow on the vanity page, or eyeshadow on the vanity page. You come to the eyeshadow page, you make your choice, but it takes you to the outfits page, to the next section, right? It should just return you back to the vanity page so you can make another choice, right? So in other words, and there should be a separate button that does that, because the next button is already there, and it's going to take you over to this outfit section. Now the exact same error was made here in this section, in that you make any of these choices and then it's going to take you down to the outro section instead of taking you back to this. So let me pause the video for a second, put some new buttons in there. I'll probably say return to vanity page and return to outfits page, and put those buttons right on top of the next buttons, and that way people can go through all 3 choices before they hit the next button. And I'll do the same here, return to outfits, right? Okay, let me pause this and I'll put that together, and then I'll come back with a video and show you what it looks like. Okay, I am back and I have fixed the problem. Now there's other solutions for this, but this is just the one that I came up with quickly, so let's take a look at it. So if I go back to the flowchart here, which I've updated, it used to be that you'd go to this vanity page and you would have these 3 choices, and you would pick one. It would take you to that page where you could choose, what eyeshadow you wanted, for example. And then that would take you to the outfits page, right? And I notice I don't even have a link showing that exists in the flowchart, but that would be another good thing to have. Thereby bypassing making your choices for these 2 pages. So what I did was, on each of these 3 pages, I made a return to vanity page button, and that will take you back to there. And then the same problem, of course, existed in this section, which is identical to this. So the outfits took you to the dress page, for example, if you chose that, and then from there it took you to the outro. But now you can keep going back until you've finished all 3. Now, it's incumbent upon the designer to put text on the page next to the return to vanity button to say, there are 3 choices you must make on this page. After making one, go back and choose the other 2. Once you've chosen all 3, hit the next button to go to the outfit section. Same type of explanation should exist here. Now, potentially easier way to do this would be to basically do it just like it looks like on this flowchart here. You could basically get rid of this vanity and outfits page and just have somebody choose their eyeshadow, then hit the next button, choose their blush, choose their lipstick, and so on and so forth. And that is actually a cleaner way to do this, because then you remove all this looping back and forth, to those main pages, and it's less confusing. But I'll let the designer decide if she wants to go back and do that, how she wants to clean that up. But let's go ahead and take a look at the updated template So here we have the title page, you get to the story page, and then you get to the vanity page with the three choices. And this time when you click like eyeshadow, for example, instead of just having the next button, which will go to the outfit section, there should be some text that she puts in here saying, remember there's three sections three areas you must decide what you're going to use in the vanity section. And it could even say eyeshadow, uh, blush, and whatever the heck the third one is. And then, make sure you click the return to vanity page until you've done all three, right? Third one is lipstick. Okay. So you've done your eyeshadow, you do your blush. This takes you back to the vanity page, and you do your lipstick. And this time, you've done all three, so now you can hit the next button. Same dealio here. You click on your dress. Some text here that says to return to the outfits page. You do your hair. Go back to the outfits page. You do your shoes, and now you go next. And of course, now you're on the outro, and then finally the reward page. So just a reminder here of how that looks. It goes to the outro and the reward page. Okay, so once again, it's not ideal. The setup is just sort of a quick and dirty fix. It will work, especially if you add that extra text in telling people how to sort of do this rhythm and keep drilling back through this page until you've got everything done. But once again, it would be a simpler process if you just did a straight shot. Okay, so let's look at some other stuff that we have from some students here. So now I got to figure out where it is. Let's see. Here we go. So here is another student's work. This one was inspired by 90s games like Myst. And what it is the idea of the game is that a guy who's the protagonist, who's you, wakes up in his bed, except it's not his bed, it's just a bed, and then he's trapped in this weird space. And there's a television that comes on, and it's this bad guy who tells him, hey, I drugged you, kidnapped you, put you in this space, and you have to solve all these puzzles to get out because there's a bomb that's going to go off in 15 minutes or something like that. You're going to die, right? So you can see the way that he did the flow chart. He has it going this way, and then it kind of comes back over here. So there's the title page, and the character awakens. It's interesting. He has, if you choose to get up like on the left side, you hit your head on the floor. You basically hop over the footboard and fall down. But if you get up on the right side, like getting up on the right side of the bed, everything's okay. Then you see the TV message, and if you decide to ignore it and go back to bed, of course you die. There's a ladder that leads from that room that you're in down, and if you go down, there's a puzzle that involves a watch. If you solve it, then you get to this square here. If you ignore it, then you go to this, what's called a progress puzzle. And then the progress puzzle can lead you to death. However, if you do this, if you solve the watch, then you can get to progress puzzle 2. Now you get to puzzle watch 2, and of course if you give up, you die. You solve it, you come down here, you ignore it. Interestingly, he's got you solving a couple puzzles, and then the penalty for sort of ignoring them is death. But then on this one, he switches it around, and if you ignore it, see, this is a dead end. If you ignore it, then you get to keep going, and then this is a branch off to death if you ignore this puzzle. So there's only one that you get to ignore, and it's this one here. You have to solve this puzzle. If you ignore, let's see, this is a dead end if you solve this puzzle, so similar to what we just encountered. However, if you ignore the puzzle, you see a locked door. If you can get past the locked door, but you ignore whatever's down here, then you go back to the puzzles or you die. But if you don't, if you embrace the challenge, then you win the game. So, and what we have here from this student is some sketches, some storyboards that show, what his idea is. So you wake up in the bed, that's your view. That's the view of the guy on the television. This is the hole where you look down and there's a ladder that you can go down. This is the first watch puzzle. I guess it's in a tower. The watch is inside there, and then you have to, it looks like maybe there's some calculations you have to make. He's doing all the artwork in this in like a 3D program that he's teaching himself. So he's got little pictures. It looks like maybe Blender or something like that And he's showing pictures of the work he's doing and some more sketches here, other ideas for characters and puzzles. And then here's like a mood board, if you will, for this. He was inspired by the 90s game Myst, which had really beautiful 3D renderings in it, and then puzzle games. And also the less well known but equally cool The Journeyman Project, also a cool game that exists back in the 90s. And of course, for this assignment, all the students had to pair their game with a product. And so he chose Fossil, which is a watch company, which explains why he has the watch puzzles. All right, so now I'm going to take you through some of the other student work, and we'll just look quickly at their ideas, at some of their graphics and their flow charts. So let's go. Let's get out of this. Let's go back to the interactive design puzzle. So in this folder, we have a student who has decided to pair McDonald's, which is the company, with Alice in Wonderland, which is the game environment. So then you have things like Grimace being a rabbit. This is a chicken McNugget. It's a baby chicken McNugget, which is a really cute concept. Because Alice in Wonderland is a story that employs twisted or backwards logic, she's going to employ some twisted or backward logic in her game. So you're going to have a choice of whether you want to go walk into a rainy environment or a sunny one. And of course, most people would choose sunny, which in this case, because it's backward logic, is the wrong idea. Something bad is going to happen during the sunny day. But in the rain, it's going to be raining chicken McNuggets. And so, presumably that's something you like, and that's a good thing. This is the artwork that she did for her startup screen, which I think looks really great and is very inviting. And let's see, this is one of my favorite pieces of artwork she's done. There's Ronald looking down the rabbit hole. You can see this cool sort of design thing she's got going here. It's very interesting. So that is a really interesting and fun concept that she's working on. And let's see what else we got here. Okay, this student is doing a, let's see, boo, 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 boo. Okay, yeah, so she's taking Doom, the game Doom Eternal, and she's combining it with G Fuel, which is like an energy drink, and that's how she's putting her project together. And I don't think I have a flow chart to show you right here. Let's just see. Oh, here we go. So here's the start screen. You're going to get 30% discount if you beat the game. Interactive picture takes you to the game. Instructions how to play. So there's a first level, the blue key, second level, yellow key, last level, red key. There's a hidden G Fuel cup that you could find on any of these. And that's how you get the secret promotion. Down here after the red key, it takes the player to a classic Doom level ending screen with interactive floating G Fuel, and then there's a link to the website. So as you can see, every student has kind of a different way of thinking and doing flowcharts, but they're all kind of ending up with the same idea, paths that you take to achieve your final goal. Okay, so next we have this student who is doing a game where she's combining, let's see, okay, she's combining Area 51, of course, the famous Air Force Base, which is supposed to be the home for extraterrestrials, with an actual company called Meowiwana. And what it is a catnip company, and they're advertising, that their product is so good it should be illegal. But they're making it sound like marijuana and giving you the idea that the catnip is like marijuana to the kitties and that they love it so much, right? So she's combining those two together. So here's her start screen, and we can look at some of the other artwork she's got going on. Here's a hole you can go into to sneak into the base. She's going to have these different doors where, you're following, because she's combining catnip with Area 51. You go into Area 51 and you find things that cats like. And the reason there's an avocado here is because her cat likes avocado, which I think is pretty funny. And her cat likes cheese too. And this is a Meow-Awana logo. Um, and then there's some things like some tunnels that she's going to go into. Here's her flow chart. It looks like you might start at one of these colored boxes here, and then there's two ways to get into the base. One is to jump the fence, and one is to dig the hole. You can see that there's an underground tunnel down there, and then there's paths here where here you end up with the choice of the catnip door and the cheese door. Looks like kind of everything takes you to that option, right? Steal a guard uniform. But then if you go this way, you can either sneak in and steal keys, use your keys here, or jump on the roof or climb through the window. And then it looks like you got a choice of a couple other doors here. So she's taking sort of a different tack with it. I don't know where it's going to end up. I don't know if one of these two paths is going to lead to success and one to failure. Maybe she's still making the decisions about that. But it's interesting to see how everybody's going about the process and what they're coming up with, both graphically and logically. So then let's look at another one here. Let's see. This student, let's see, agile infographic. Okay, choose your own adventure. Okay, this student doesn't have enough to show us just yet. There's not a flow chart. They're doing something with Amazon and package delivery. So we'll skip that for now. This student is doing something, what it is, here's a flow chart. Okay, so it's a couple who just got married, they're newlyweds, and they have $8,000 to spend on their honeymoon. And what's going to happen is they're going to make choices of where to go and what kind of transportation, where to stay at a nice hotel, a luxury hotel, or Airbnb, and what to see, what to eat, where to stay, things like that. And based on the choices they make, they're going to end up either running out of money or having a really great vacation. Now, I think the way that she coded this, if I'm correct, is that the red choices are sort of bad in a sense. The blue choices are good, and the yellow choices are sort of neutral, something along those lines, right? And you can see, there's as many different kinds of flowcharts as there are students. So this one doesn't even have any lines. It's just got sort of these paths that you can go on, right? And she has a really cute graphic here. Let me download this, which is the start page for her animation. And let me show you this. So it's just the happy couple in the airport. Here they are. Let's look at it. And of course, in this program you get animation. In Twine, you're doing a lot of coding, but you can of course drop in animation if you want, or text or music. So here you go. There's the moving sidewalk. Is here, and it moves them into the center of the screen, and then it tells you what the story is, what the challenge is, and then the play button to hit. So that is a nice looking start that I think will be intriguing for people. And then let's see what else we have. Interactive design. Okay, so then we have Jesus, the student here, and his is going to be a little hard to explain. Maybe not. He's basically, there's a commercial company you have to add in for this project. Not for you guys, not for Twine, not for the game design. This is just for the interactive design students. But so he took Tony the Tiger, which is a brand of Kellogg's Frosted Flakes. He's the mascot of Kellogg's Frosted Flakes. And he combined it with the game Undertale, which many of you will know is a very popular game. And so here's his flowchart, which once again is like, oh my God, what the hell is going on here? But here's where you start, and you have to choose from one brand of cereal. And if you choose Frosted Flakes, which of course Tony the Tiger, a great choice, you find a prize inside, and then you go to school. And if you walking home, you hear music, and if you explore the sound, then you're headed in the right direction. But if you don't, if you're like, oh, my stomach hurts, then you kind of end up in a world of pain down here. Now, the prize that you got for opening the Frosted Flakes, it'll help you. Let's see, you find an old radio, you can ignore the radio, or you can use the prize that you found and you hear a voice, and suddenly the world turns black and white, and you end up in this area over here. Now, if you ignored the radio, you could end up over here, which I believe is another dead end. So this is the way you want to go. Now, if you, I'm not certain exactly what's going on here, but you have a choice to collect all the prizes, or you can head to the grocery store. The grocery store, of course, is bad news, cul-de-sac. I think, I'm not sure where you go to collect the prizes. Oh, yeah. I think basically one of them is you sneak into the grocery store or you come in the front door. So if you sneak in through the vents, then I guess you meet Tony the Tiger inside the grocery store, and maybe there's some other mascots from cereals that are good and bad. And of course, if you don't, if you have to send Tony outside to cause a distraction. And if you do that, you find the cereal box, you open the Frosted Flakes, and you get the prizes you need to win the game. If you don't send Tony outside for the distraction, then bad things happen, right? So, and then here's some of his graphics. He did like Tony in sort of a pixel art way, which is similar to Undertale. There's a black and white version of him, and there's sort of the pixel art version. And the student drew all this, you know, so he really is good at that stuff. And so he's got some reference material here as well. Let's see what else we got in there. Oh yeah, so to wrap it up, our last student here is combining, I guess, snacks. So a company that makes snacks that are often eaten in movies with the idea of a horror movie. So she has, this is her graphic. The horror movie is called Hangman. It's Hangman Movie Night, and what's happening is you are going to the grocery store to get some snacks, and you have to choose, healthy snacks or unhealthy snacks. And then once you're in here, the lights turn off, and basically the boogeyman is coming to get you, right? And so here is her flow chart. So if you choose sweets, depending on what you choose, you're going to die by the hangman, or same thing here. After you got the snacks, you got three choices again. Of course, if you choose blood, that's a bad choice. Maybe the hangman will smell you out, smell the blood. And then, so after you've made your food and drink choices, you go to the checkout. If you run to your car, I guess, and call the police, maybe you survive. If you decide to stay inside where it's safe, you're going to die, I guess. And then, let's see, if it looks like, if you do anything other than run your car and call the police, you're just going to die for the hangman. So lots of death, lots of, poor decisions that can end you up dead here. This student's, it's fascinating to me how different every flowchart is, but, the color coding really helps, and there's these sort of natural breaks where you can see what's happening, right? Okay, so I think that's pretty much all I wanted to show you today. Just give you examples of the stuff that the students are doing in another class for, a similar assignment, how they're doing their flowcharts, and how important flowcharts are, because, if you don't do a flowchart, if you just start plugging away and inventing the game, you can create something, but you could create a lot of work for yourself, maybe a lot of unnecessary work. Even today when we were looking at examples, I started showing this example, and right away as I started walking through it, I realized I had made a mistake, and I had to go back in and do more work. And even after that, I realized that there was an easier way to do this. So the bottom line is this: if you just go by instinct and develop a whole game, it's almost like writing a novel, stream of consciousness. You might have success, more power to you, right? But if you take the time to think everything through and do a flow chart in whatever style you want, because you could see the styles were all over the place, then you very well may have increased your chances of having an easier time of creating the final product. Now, in addition to the flow chart, you might consider making something like what we saw here, which is you might make a shell in twine, right? Here we've got this shell where, all the pages are kind of linked together. They all have titles to them and everything. And once you are armed with your flowchart and your shell, and maybe you've started to grab some graphics or some reference material or whatever, your job becomes much easier because now you can grab the graphics, put them together in the desired way, drop them into the existing shell, which was already sort of all programmed and working, and you got your flowchart as a sort of a grocery list or maybe a plan, like a layout of how everything's going to work. So you've really empowered yourself if you proceed in that manner, or any version of that works for you. And of course, there's no right or wrong way to make games, whatever way you want to go. These are just some suggestions for things that might help you speed up your process and make it more accurate. Now, one other thing I want to show you actually before I let you go today is um, I also went to the effort to do some research on everything that the students were doing for their in this in particular class, the interactive design class, and I'll show you why I did that. So if we go to interactive design, let's see, blah blah blah, and I'm going to go to the previous week and the final notes here. Okay. So what you'll see, if I scroll down quite a bit here, let's see, to here, you'll see that these are all of the student names and basically all the projects that they were doing. What happened was I made links to places on the internet that had information or reference material for everything they were doing. Like for example, here for Daniel, who was doing the Mist-like game, there's a link to Mist in Wikipedia, there's a link to Journeyman Project, and a link to Fossil, right? And I told the students, I'm going to do some research on all this stuff that you guys are investigating to use for your games, and I'm gonna put together a big list of information, which will hopefully help you come up with ideas for your games, right? So I did. I put together the huge list, and let's see. I believe it is back here in week 16. This is it right here, and I'm gonna have to launch it in Acrobat to see it. And we won't go through the details of all of this, but I'll just show you the sort of broad overview. So, I went out and researched Doom, and I went out and researched G Fuel because those were the things that were part of the first game. And I came up with some provocative questions for the student. I didn't know this, but I guess the Doom guy was a space marine, and so I'm like, should you use space marine imagery? Doom was created in '93, so maybe use some retro fonts. There's a lot of devil imagery in there, so you want to use that, and then some information about G Fuel. They have a lot of fun with naming their products, so maybe she could have some fun, naming aspects of the game. For Alice in Wonderland, I talked about the logical puzzles and literary nonsense. For McDonald's, I gave her links to all the characters that McDonald's created and all the characters that were created for Alice in Wonderland, so she can do the transition from one to the other. For Undertale, I did some research on that and asked some questions about the game. Let's see, it said, oh yeah, in Undertale, let's see, the player can choose to pacify or subdue monsters instead of killing them. And that has an effect on what happens later in the game. So I said, do you want to do that in your game? Here's some information about Tony the Tiger, which is really interesting. I didn't know this, but in let's see, in the 1970s, they claimed that Tony the Tiger had an Italian-American family, including Mama Tony, Mrs. Tony, and I guess Tony Jr. Let's see, for Daniel, I have a link to Myst Wikipedia, and then some information about the game and asking questions about his game. Will have similar features to Myst, like the linking books. And Myst was known for its cool audio track, so will he have a cool audio track back there? And in this game, the Journeyman Project, they had these things called biochips, and so I asked about those, and I asked what time frame is his game taking place, because that could affect the graphics, right? It could be very futuristic, for example. Here's some information about the Fossil Watch company that he can incorporate into his game. For the Area 51, I researched and found out that there's a bunch of interesting names around the Area 51. army base, which is actually called a homie base, I believe. And but there's all these names like homie airport. It's located off the extraterrestrial highway. The place where it's located is called Groombox, which is in the Tikaboo Valley. So I thought that was very interesting, and I sent that her way in case she wanted to incorporate that into her game. With Meow Iwana, I said, their tagline is catnip products so good they should be illegal, and is maybe the reason they're locked up in there is because they are illegal, right? They like to make cat jokes, so will there be cat jokes in her game? Will there be marijuana-looking items in her game? And then for this student who was doing the first game that I showed you, which was the young girl who needs to get dressed for the prom, you know, uh, I sent her some screenshots of this website, Games for Girls, that's aimed at young girls, and there's at least one game I found, which was a dress-up game. And then I wondered if she wanted to change her character's skin tone because it was originally white, and I thought if she made sort of a medium brown skin tone, it might be more accessible to more people, and then left that up to her to decide what she wanted to do. And then I asked if there was a deeper message being communicated by her game. Is self-worth to young girls tied to going to the prom or being able to afford expensive dresses? And what if you can't go to the prom or you can't afford the dresses? Are you still okay? Should your self-worth and self-esteem still be high? And she might want to consider that and put information about that in her game because, of course, we're always sending messages out through the media that we make, including games. And then we didn't really look at the Amazon game because there's not a flowchart, so I'm going to skip that. And then for the final game, the grocery store game with the horror movie, I investigated some horror films and found out that the horror genre was started by inspired by Edgar Allan Poe, Bram Stoker, and Mary Shelley. So, is part of her game going to be inspired by those same sources is what I asked. And I also, she said she went to a grocery store. I found all these different definitions for different kind of stores. You might think the corner store is a convenience store or a grocery store, but there's actually different definitions for everything. So, and then I guess, I'm sorry, we have one more down at the bottom here, which is the student who had a couple that was going on honeymoon. So I found out that the honeymoon is interesting. Nowadays, there's a trend called a solo moon or a unimoon where two people get married, but they go on separate vacations, which I thought, that's nuts. But that's, I guess, something that happens now. Um, and so, I found some research, did some research about honeymooning, about travel agencies. She was originally going to have them be affected by the virus, but she decided not to do that, so we skipped that. But I talked about that there are travel agencies. Most people book their own stuff now, but travel agencies book cruises and niche vacations. So if they're using a travel agency, is it a niche vacation? Like going to Hawaii and eating pineapples all day. That's a niche vacation, right? If it is, what kind is it, and how does that affect her gameplay, right? So once again, the reason that I did all this research was to show those students, and hopefully it'll be inspirational to you guys too, that if you do research on the topics that are included in your game, you can come up with a wealth of information that you can incorporate into the game. Now, in the old days, you might have gone to the library. Of course, you're still welcome to go to the library when it opens up again, but you have the online library of all information available on the internet, plus, of course, Wikipedia, which is a great source. And, I'm not requiring when you guys do your Twine games that you do this level of research. I'm suggesting that if I suggested a way, to make a flow chart and to make a template where everything's linked together as a way to, then create your graphics and text and drop them in there as a way to organize your game construction. But, as a further suggestion, if you have the time and the interest, if you do some research, you can include some of the graphics you find and some of the text you find and some of the ideas into your game, and you could even include that piece of research in with the game that you send, because that's fascinating to me, and that tells me that you go above and beyond and that you really like to make well-rounded games and be very informed. So just some ideas for you for your Twine game design. Please continue to work on that. As I said, play test it with your friends and family. And plan to have that done by May 18th, which is the last day of class. And then make sure you let me know when you've uploaded to your Google Drive so I can check it out. And don't forget that if you put additional assets into your game, like sound and graphics and stuff, you have to upload the entire folder that has everything in it, not just the HTML page for the game, because I won't be able to see any of the content, any of the asset links that will all be broken, because that never, would never have gotten uploaded, right? Okay, so please have fun doing all this stuff, and let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you again on Wednesday.